Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
And we're beaming back after a few weeks off again, and we've got, look at this, nice sunshine. It's fantastic, isn't it? Blue skies and whatnot. We were just saying that before we got on that it'd be good if maybe if this is the consistent pattern going off for the next couple of months, because rain or no, depending on where we are, it's been it's been really cold here and almost Arctic-like over winter, and it's just good to get a bit of sun back, get the vibes happening again.
I've got to say so. Yes, we've had the Antarctic blast. All the cold air's come off Antarctica because it's too hot there, and it's come up over us, and it has been very cold.
Absolutely. Speaking of blasts, I'd have to say that qualifies for Australia's Olympic performance in Paris over the last couple of weeks, breaking the record with 18 gold medals. Third on the tally, at least as we record this today, 2 days before the end of the Olympics. It's been really good. Been watching a bit of it. Like I said in the last episode, it's been fun to just sort of check in and check out the coverage. And obviously, the good thing about having that on-demand ability to stream whatever you want, it means yes, I've watched some of the Australian stuff, but I've also been able to check out when I wanted to check it out some of the fascinating sort of efforts in quite a number of the other Olympic sports. Actually, the diving was quite interesting for me. Don't know how those Chinese divers do it, but they enter the pool perfectly every time, from what I can see.
I'd say that'd be a lot of practice. I mean, I've certainly enjoyed the Olympics a lot, just like you. I've watched everything. And I like the sports that are true Olympic sports that we don't see that often. So modern pentathlon, a lot of the gymnastics, and of course I'm always a big fan of the track and field, anything that's going on out there.
Yeah, and just on that track and field, I watched the 400 meter hurdle race, I think, the final, which I think was this morning, I think. And that was just fascinating because I didn't know any of them, and apparently the top three had some sort of rivalry going back a few years or something. And apparently the guy that won from America was that was his first out of the three of them that was his first gold medal, and they were talking about how it finally filled that gap in his soul or something. I guess commentators will say anything, won't they?
A bit of gold, though. Oh, geez, it does a lot. It does a lot for you.
Absolutely. So looking forward to the closing ceremony. We might touch on that next week. But it's always a good thing to... it's like the world checks out for a bit and just has a bit of fun at the Olympics.
Well, that's it. And of course, for us, I think overnight will be the men's marathon. And of course, if you're a fan of people that run a long distance, you've got to tune in for Eliud Kipchoge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We talk about tech quite often on this podcast, but I did want to touch on streaming boxes today because what perpetuated me to go down this path was that Google had announced that they're going to replace the Chromecast with a brand new device called the Google TV Streamer, which is more along the lines of an Apple TV or a set-top box that is a bit more powerful, does the app thing, etc., etc. And the one thing I did want to sort of touch on with this is that I thought there was still a place for the Chromecast. Why they had to get rid of the Chromecast? They could have just kept it there for $30 or whatever, and had this other version if they wanted to have the other version. But before we get into that, the one thing I did want to say was, we talk about device usage and how often to use your device, etc. I find at least with because I've got an Apple TV here, and I actually find that that's the device that's like the sleeper in terms of usage. It's actually probably my most used device, funny enough. It's just that obviously I'm not sitting in front of the TV all the time. It's just that it'll have things on, could be streaming music, or it could be streaming podcasts. It could be doing anything, but it's on often a lot more than any of my other devices as far as I can tell. So I find that in an era of streaming, having whether it's an Apple TV or even like I said, a Chromecast or this TV streamer that they're coming out with, that they're quite a handy device to have, just nestled behind your TV, plugged in where you don't even really see it.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely, I don't know, outraged, upset, or just resigned to the fact that this is the typical thing that Google does. Chromecast, apart from their search engine, is one of their few products that actually works. I've been a big Chromecast fan since Generation 1. I've got a Generation 1 and a Generation 3, and I think that they are actually fantastic. And now they're going to take them away from me. Well, good on you, Google. Like, you're going to replace them with a box that isn't going to work as well as your little dongle. And, the thing about Google that I've always felt is whether or not you're a big fan of what they do make everything accessible. And they do actually make it accessible at very reasonable, either free or very cost-effective levels. And they're just taking out the Chromecast and deciding that they're going to force everyone to a streaming box, and that's going to take on Apple, which is, I get it, and good on them, but there's still a place for the Chromecast. Although I would have to say now, Google TVs, I think, are starting to take that role. So maybe that's what's behind their decision.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think they could just have both. They've got the resources to maintain the continuity for all those devices. I mean, I feel like it's a shame too, because I was just in Hobart earlier in the week, and the hotel I was staying in had a Chromecast built into the back. You didn't see it. It just was an option on the screen. And it's just handy that you can just pick up your phone and then just start streaming stuff straight to it. And that the ease of that, I think, will be missed in terms of that.
100%, Ben. That's what's so great about the Chromecast. Once it's set up, it's so easy to, whether you've got an Apple phone or whether you've got an Android phone, you can connect to it and you can use it. And I get where they're going with their new box, but I really, the thing that I think probably really has me up in arms most is the fact that all it attempts to do is to drag us either further into the Google ecosystem or further into the Apple system if that's the way you go. And what it's doing is it's alienating people who just appreciate Google for being Google.
Absolutely. Where that's also a slight hint towards all you Pixel phone users as well.
I can honestly say I've never been a fan of the Pixel phone, but feel free. Like, if we're wrong, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think we are, though.
No. Alrighty. All right, our last topic, because it's the gift that keeps on giving, just like it was the last episode we talked about it, which is the Tim Walz announcement as Kamala Harris's running mate in the US presidential election. Obviously, she had to make that decision. But just picking up on some of the ideas that we were talking about last time, I find it curious that I think that maybe he suited her sensibility out of all of them in terms of whoever she was looking at. There was obviously a connection with social media, and his effectively he popularized the term weird when describing the Republicans, which took off online, and I'm sure that was noticed. And he's got the whole I'm the cool dad for Gen Z vibe. And he did actually he did have a speech when he was announced, and he sounded pretty good as far he was able to put his sentences together and sound energetic and all of that. But it kind of I think we were talking about this before we got on. I think what it did is it highlighted a sense of energy and vitality that now makes Trump look really old. A bit like how Biden was looking a bit old before they pulled the pin on him. Although I don't think they're going to pull the pin on Trump somehow, because they've gone too far down the line now as far as selecting him. And I don't think it's actually in the DNA of the Republicans to do something like that, because once they get all together and they get on board all together, that's it. They're going all the way through. Obviously, Trump had this bizarre press conference a day or two ago, and he had to bring up crowd sizes again because apparently he's not happy that the Harris Walz ticket is generating huge crowds. Whenever they're going around the country, doing their rallies and whatnot. And I think it just seems more and more that the Trump shtick is getting old, and what by that I mean politically old. So whereas as obscene as far as I'm concerned is that it did work in 2016, but it hasn't really worked since, and if anything it's gotten worse. And I just find it's interesting that the way to contrast that is to go with almost a social media led campaign from the other side. And then I think about all of that, and I go back to what I said the last time: who the hell knows what's going to happen? Because I truly think that this is still Wild West territory. That and again, another dig at the media from me, they're still thinking in conventional terms. The whole thing about Shapiro not being selected as the VP candidate instead of Walz was because conventional thinking says you pick him to give you Pennsylvania, which is the one that she needs the most in order to guarantee the electoral college, but she didn't pick him. And they're like, but he was the one that she should have picked. She made a mistake. Did she, though? This is what I'm saying. There's too much conventional punditry in the media that I find that they a bit behind the eight ball with some of that stuff, but they're still trying to they're still trying to present a way that that they think that they know what they're talking about with this stuff, whereas I think collectively I don't think anyone knows what's going on.
I tend to agree with you, Ben. I think one thing that with 4 or 5 weeks now since Biden stepped down. That did happen, didn't it? I almost forgot that happened, given the cycle that's going on at the moment. It's so long ago. But the interesting thing is I think it's given the Democrats a chance to reset. And in that period, they've thought about these things. So if you notice, Kamala Harris really hasn't been allowed to speak too publicly or push her profile too high, apart from the fact she is the Democratic nomination. And I think that's quite measured. She hasn't got a great record, certainly from past campaigns. So this is one way of creating a vacuum, and I think this is quite deliberate for Trump to shout into. And it's having the effect, as you say, of making Trump look like a shouty old man. In fact, he now starts to look, and I would say actually visibly and visually, in terms of the way media is distributed in this day and age, he's starting to look like a shouty old man that's not much more sound than Biden was. And I thought Biden was okay, but Trump's now starting to look a little bit detached. So I think there's a lot of that in there. And then to choose Walz, who is literally somebody who looks very clean, doesn't have much of a record, would be very hard for Trump to attack, apart from calling him the usual list of names or crimes. But it'll be very hard to stick anything to him because he doesn't seem to have a record of anything other than a sort of, a neutral, sort of nice kind of ordinary guy. So I think that, and plus he's actually has got a significant social following. So I think that sort of thing, the Democrats would have really looked into this. They'd be thinking about this deeply, and it's quite potentially maybe that's what actually wins you 3 states instead of just 1. So I don't think, I'd be very disappointed as someone who's just interested in political machinations if the Democrats really haven't thought this through and finally after 8 years lined everything up to at least give themselves a winning chance. That would be my assessment. And I think potentially they have. And I'm agreeing with you now from a few weeks ago. This election, I think, could literally go any way, and it's now Trump's to lose.
And cynicism aside, the Democrats have got significant motivation to want to beat Trump properly this time, I think, because because it's not just him, it's everything that he represents. Now, one thing I wanted to finish up on, though, is that even if they have a thumping victory in November, they're still going to have to deal with Trumpism in some way, shape or form. I don't think it's just going to disappear overnight. And how that gets handled will be interesting in the subsequent years, I guess.
I would agree with you, Ben. I am a firm believer, though, that, Trump sure is a figurehead, but he represents the isolation and the disconnection for part of America. So maybe he doesn't necessarily, I think most people would agree that the way he voices that may well be inappropriate, but that is actually what the Democrats need to use the next 4 years to rebuild if they're successful. Because if they don't, this won't go away. And this will be something that will continue to divide, and not just in their country, but globally as well. So I think it's very important that somewhere along the way, whoever wins, there's some sort of reconnection of America and they're united once again.
It's certainly something they've done before in their history. So let's see if they can do it again. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. We'll keep an eye on it. I have a feeling I might be bringing this topic back up a couple of more times before November, but it is what it is.
Well, we'll see what happens, because we all know with Trump, the next week will bring something new.
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for this week's episode. We'll catch you next time.